Well, Rebekka is really the face of PAM Plus in Germany. She's has been working for PAM Plus for a couple of years, so for over 6 years so far. Originally studying also in Zurich at the ETH, then moving back to Germany. And I'd really like to welcome her for the very, I would say, tricky question. So where is the economics part in all these discussions? And I really like to hand over now to Rebekka. So welcome to welcome to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Michael. Yes, where is the E for economics is my question, and we are always talking about ESG, environment, social and governance, and this is right, and it comes from a corporate perspective, and it makes sense like this. But I'm a strong believer that change will only take place if we have a pain or if we have a potential in revenue. And this is why I'm always missing the E for economics. We are in an industry which is highly revenue driven. Susanne said that it's always profit, profit, profit. So when we want to change something in this sustainability matter, we need to have like at least a view on the economics to have this or pain or potential revenue. And this is why I'm talking today a lot about those three perspectives. I want to extend the ESG to people, planet, profit. So we have to focus a lot on this profit in order to take the responsibility. We already heard that real estate is responsible for at least 30% of the CO2 emission. So we need to go in the social contract there. We have to have a view on all those perspectives, but it has to be interesting on the profit part as well for really making this change. We already heard that until now the profit was mainly based on location, and I think there will be a huge shift in this formula. And I like what Susanne said, because I had it in my notes as well, and this shows that it's really like that. So we still will talk about location, and location will be a main driver for the profit. I'm really sure about this, but we need to look in another way about the location. So will the cities be the A cities will still be the most winning locations, or will this change? And even more important, we have to add more parameters. So there, the people come more and more into the center, and of course the planet. We need to consider the planet in every investment decision that we are going to make, especially in this real estate sector. So there will be a shift. We need to take the responsibility, but we need to even learn more about how we could do that. If we look into other industries, and there are a lot of industries as always that are like before, some steps before the real estate sector, because unfortunately the real estate industry is not the fastest. We see, this is a study from last year that showed an effect from sustainability in a lot of industries, and in all investments it says that it has always a huge positive effect if I consider ESG criteria in my investment. So it works in other aspects. So, and this is why I'm questioning why it shouldn't work in the real estate sector. But still, since we are an industry which is, a bit complicated, there are always headlines like this. So I'm sorry, it's in German, but it was only printed in German newspapers. So Alstria is, for me, a role model in this ESG context in the industry. Mentioned or published that their actions are not able or do not have the willingness to pay 1 cent for each stock to change the climate and to invest it in climate measurements. And this shows for me a lot what is holding the industry behind, because there's always the question, yes, we want to, or there's always the statement, yes, we want to be green and we want to change, but at least until now, it's a lot of marketing and image polishing sometimes. And when it comes to costs, then there's always a veto, and we rethink measurements. And I think this headline brings it all together. And I think we should agree that we need to stop thinking like that and looking at the potentials and even the finance potentials that we could achieve by doing sustainable measurements. So as I said, it's always green, sure, but I'm always interested in revenue, and I brought you some maybe not so promising measures that would conduct it. So we have, on the one hand, we have this birdhouses, which is one of my favorite example, because I talked a lot with several clients and potential clients around that said there are all those measures, but they are not interesting on the cost perspective, so they cost me money and I don't have any impact when I talk about ratings and so on, and I don't have an impact on revenue, or I have a negative impact on revenue because it's only cost something and has no potential. But I think we need to change our perspective. So when we speak, for example, about green roofs, which is another nice example, which a lot of customers of ours did already implement, maybe on the first view I have the same result, so it costs a lot, maybe it hasn't even so much impact when I do ratings and benchmarks, and it has again this negative impact revenue. But I think when we change perspective, maybe it's getting green when we speak about impact revenue, because maybe when it could have a higher tenant satisfaction. So if I look out and I only see gray, and gray, maybe it's better for the tenant if they are seeing green roof, and so I could have less fluctuation and a higher rent. So maybe some measures are really only for doing campaigning and so on, but others maybe we need to change the view and really do something here. And so I brought you some for all these pillars: planet, profit, people. I brought some understanding on what we could do and what we should do in terms of, always with this economic eye, in terms of getting a sustainable real estate management. So looking at the people aspect, I think it's really important, or everyone should understand that it's important to know your customer, to know your tenant, to know what are the needs and requirements now, and how do those requirements evolve and change. And so I need to, in order to be sustainable, I need to look at my tenant, who is my tenant, and how can I increase the tenant satisfaction and anticipate tenant needs in order to bind them on me. And then there could even be some more byproducts where I could maybe even raise my revenue by offering new services to my tenant, services always connected maybe with some sustainability aspects, such as e-mobility or even the transparent billing of service charges. So when I speak about people, it's like knowing my customer, knowing their needs, and handling those needs sustainable. And then I could even have some short-term cost savings. When we speak about the planet, then it's obvious that we always speak about CO2 emissions, and I think what we need to keep in mind is that we have binding CO2 benchmarks that are coming obviously from the politics, but even from our internal benchmark. We should have a huge focus on that in order to be able to reduce costs and have a sustainable energy management, which is always, and we have already spoken a lot about it, always based on a good database. I need to be able to manage my data, to know what information do I need, how can I structure them, and how can I collaborate with this data in order to reduce CO2, in order to mapping my actual CO2 emissions with relevant measures in order to reduce it. And this is a huge challenge that we are confronted with, and that we need to resolve by bringing more transparency in our data models, being more able and agile to collaborate with data, exchange data, and take more insights out of data. So this is like, those are all measurements that have mid or long-term cost savings, which are really relevant. And the last pillar is the profit. So I want to make profit. I don't only want to like save money. I want to make more money. And the first step is starting in the planning stage to have the first understanding of my possible life cycle costs, to have a look in the embodied carbon footprint of my real estate. So starting really early in the early stages. And decide on my sustainable future of my portfolio. But then there are other topics like already mentioned AO taxonomy. So maybe I can even increase my returns through government supported green investments. I need to have like new investment strategies. I have to have a new angle in my investment, not only profit, not only location, but I need to change the strategy, overall strategy. And this brings me to the next point. By doing so, I'm always able to approach and acquire new customers. So there are a lot of customers and third-party investors which will never ever again invest in something which is not green, or maybe even has no GRESB certificate or something like this. And I think those requirements will increase, and I have to be prepared in order to bind my customers and to approach and acquire new customers to be green and to be able to be still a player and stakeholder in the market. So there are a lot of things that we can do. On the one hand, to cost optimization, which is really important. If I have all my costs together and I have a good overview about my costs, I can manage maybe to have like a higher rent or whatever. So I need to reduce costs. And on the other hand, I have a lot of possibilities for yield optimization by doing sustainability measures. And I think this should be a high motivation. I brought you only some numbers so that you know that it's really true. So when we speak about new buildings, they are really resource conserving. So you see here we have like more and more implementation of heat pumps, and we see that the overall, those are surveys that we did from Pump Plus, the overall heating costs are decreasing with the time, and the same as for water saving fittings. They really show effect for new buildings. And then there's another side effect. So we are more and more getting more professional regarding the FM services, so on, and even there, by structuring it in a more sustainable way, we are able to decrease costs over time. Of course, a small negative side effect is the rising electricity, but I think we need to accept that in order to go one step ahead. And then there's the other thing that for now I didn't mention, but I think this is the aspect where everyone is really afraid of, is the CO2 taxes, which are like a Damocles sword over all of our heads. And there are some numbers how they will increase over time, and we already have in Switzerland like a CO2 a tax of 96 Swiss francs for each ton, but they will increase at least double, and this of course will have an impact on the heating expenses. And even if you say, yeah, but I can allocate it to my tenant, it won't be able to allocate everything, because there is a willingness to pay even for rent in Zurich or other A cities. So there will be a huge impact on earnings per year, and we have like at least 2% lower market values when we speak about revenues of 5 to 6%. So it's already a lot, and I think this should be another motivation to change something. I want to close my main discussion on this short presentation with again those 3 pillars. So we've seen that we can save costs and we can optimize yields, and the question is what is missing and what is holding us back. And I think one thing that we already talked in both presentations before me, we have a lack of transparency, not only in our data structures now, but even in the requirements and specifications. There are a lot of people holding back because they don't really know what the politics and society will require. And but I think it's no time for holding back. We need to go one step ahead and do something. Then we have maybe some lack of internal expertise. So there are not so many people that which are yet focused on the ESG perspectives, and the biggest part is the lack of data standards and for processing and exchange necessary data. We have several data standards, but there's missing this overall data standard, and this is why we are happy to have this initiative that we mentioned 2 times now, IBPDI, to develop this overall data standards. So I think we should grow together, collaborate, take responsibility now, and take part in relevant alliances and associations. But the most important thing that we need to act now, because the time for only talking about it is over. Thank you.
Rebekka, thank you a lot for your presentation and for your insightful slides. I just wanted to very shortly, because there's lots of topics to talk about, but we are slowly running out of time. But I have 2 questions for you. Why is it, the real estate industry is pretty old. Why is it so difficult to have common data standards?
Yeah, the market is...
Sorry, why is... Yeah.
So I think on the one hand, the real estate market is really fragmented. So we have, when we speak about professional investors and owners, we speak like about 7% of the whole market, and the others are private. And so this is the first challenge there. And then the other challenge in this market is that a lot of people are actually interested in not having all the transparency. So a lot of business models in this industry are based on transparency of this market. And those things together bring us to the point that we always have a lot of resources bundled for doing the same and the same and the same thing again all the time that we are selling or buying a property or doing even a report. And but I think it's time to change that.
And one possibility how to change it will be presented in the next presentation. So thank you a lot, Rebekka, for your insights.